TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announces Jerusalem's policy vis-à-vis Damascus. The IDF, in close cooperation with the ISA and Border Police Special Operators, intensify their counter-terror activity throughout Judea and Samaria. The Israeli Air Force struck over a dozen terror targets in southern Lebanon amid continued Hezbollah violations of the ceasefire outline. Israel will not stand idly by while the Islamist Hamas terror organization parades the hostages in an inhumane manner before handing the captives over to the Red Cross, which then delivers them to Israel. On Saturday, as part of the ceasefire deal's outline, Hamas released 6 Israeli hostages, to include 2 who were in Hamas captivity for over 9 years, and 4 hostages who were released after 505 days since October 7th of 2023.
We are at the end of an emotionally complex week. 505 days since October 7th. Omer, Avera, Hisham, Tal, Omer, and Elia have returned home to their families. After an initial evaluation and examination, the 6 were transferred to Ichilov and Bellinson hospitals so that they could be reunited with the families and the friends who have been waiting for them for so long. Here at the hospitals, they will receive medical, psychological, and rehabilitative treatment.
It is important to know that the 4 released hostages who were kidnapped on October 7th of 2023 suffered from torture, physical violence, psychological abuse, and severe starvation while in captivity. Moreover, according to an initial investigation into the circumstances of their time in captivity, it has been revealed that Hamas forced them to drink seawater during their first months in captivity and often denied them food and water for several days. Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the latest release of the hostages.
So we had a lot of news over the last 24 hours. We had the hostages given back today. It's disgraceful what's going on there. They're not in great shape, but we've also seen them in worse shape. But the hostages, the 6 hostages, were delivered by Hamas. What a terrible situation it is.
It is important to know that the body of Shiri Bibas was initially replaced by the remains of a deceased Gazan woman, was delivered to Israel on Friday night, after which the Israeli Forensic Medicine Institute formally identified her remains the next day. Moreover, in contrast to the deceitful claims by Hamas, Shiri and her 2 little boys, Ariel and Kfir, were not killed in an Israeli airstrike.
We have identified the remains of Shiri Bibas 2 days after identifying her children, Ariel and Kfir. Our examination found no evidence of injuries caused by bombing.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, during an address to an IDF officer's graduation ceremony, elaborated on the manner in which Shiri, Ariel, and Kfir Bibas were murdered, while stopping short from elaborating on the manner in which Hamas attempted to hide their crime.
They murdered Shiri and her children in cold blood. They strangled the gentle children with their own hands. And if only they could, they would have murdered all of us with the same cruelty, down to the last of us. We are fighting against this, and we must and can defeat them, these monsters, and we will defeat them.
It is important to know that Netanyahu's remarks were stated with permission of the Bibas family. The Israeli Prime Minister, who expanded on Israel's efforts to secure the release of all hostages, continued by proclaiming that Jerusalem will not relent on its core objectives of the war versus the murderous Hamas.
בעזה חיסלנו את מרבית הכוח המאורגן של החמאס.
In Gaza, we eliminated most of Hamas's organized force. But let there be no doubt, we will complete the goals of the war, including this one, to the end. This can be achieved through negotiations, and it can also be achieved in another way. From the beginning of the war, the conditions we set for ending the war were clear and remain clear. All of our hostages, without exception, will return home. Hamas will not control Gaza. Gaza will be demobilized, and the fighting force will be dismantled. We have led large parts of the international community to this understanding, including President Trump, who sees eye to eye with us on everything related to Gaza. We support President Trump's groundbreaking plan to allow freedom of exit for Gazans and to create a different Gaza.
Prime Minister Netanyahu went on to address Israel's intensifying counter-terror operations in Judea and Samaria, with chief focus on the so-called refugee camps of the North Samaria district.
In Judea and Samaria, our forces are moving deep into the refugee camps. They are destroying terror infrastructure, eliminating terrorists, and they will remain there as long as necessary. Yesterday, we instructed our commanders, the defense minister and I, to clear the refugee camp in Kabatia. For the first time in Judea and Samaria in decades, we brought in tanks. This means one thing: we are fighting terror by all means, everywhere.
While the IDF, in close cooperation with the ISA and Border Police special operators, are intensifying counter-terror operations in the northern Samaria region, the IDF, in joint activity with Israel Police, are also ratcheting up operational activity to prevent smuggling efforts of weaponry from Jordan into Israel's Jordan Valley, from which the terror cells throughout Judea and Samaria are primarily catered to. Separately, the Israeli Air Force conducted 14 separate aerial strikes against terror targets belonging to the Iranian proxy Hezbollah throughout southern Lebanon. The strikes were executed while Hezbollah, alongside thousands of Iranian and RGC-backed dignitaries, visited the Lebanese capital for a mass burial ceremony of the terror proxy's slain leaders, namely Hassan Nasrallah and his short-lived successor, Hashem Safieddin. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also addressed Israel's unequivocal stance vis-à-vis its presence in Lebanon.
In Lebanon, we will continue to hold strategic territories along our northern border, inside Lebanon and opposite our communities, until the Lebanese army and the Lebanese government fulfill all of their obligations under the agreement.
Prime Minister Netanyahu further addressed Israel's newly adopted policy versus Syria, as part of which Jerusalem demands all territories south of Damascus be demilitarized from the al-Qaeda-linked Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, and its newly formed military.
In Syria, IDF forces will remain in the Hermon mountaintops and in the buffer zone for an indefinite period of time to protect our communities and thwart any threat. It is worth listening. We will not allow the forces of the HTS organization or the new Syrian army to enter the area south of Damascus. We demand the complete demilitarization of southern Syria in the provinces of Quneitra, Dara, and As-Suwaida from the forces of the new regime. Likewise, we will not tolerate any threat to the Druze community in southern Syria.
Last but certainly not least, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also addressed Jerusalem's policy versus Iran, which continues to voice its aspirations to annihilate the nation-state of the Jewish people.
משטר האייתולות הרעוע באיראן ביקש לחנוק...
The shaky Ayatollah regime in Iran sought to strangle us within a ring of terror.
מציר הרשע של איראן.
We crushed large parts of Iran's axis of evil with deadly blows, blows that inspired astonishment, I might say, even admiration, around the world. We cut off a significant part of the power of Iranian proxies, and we damaged Iran's own defense and missile production capabilities. But our ultimate goal was and remains absolutely clear. We will not allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons. And this goal serves first and foremost our national security, but it also serves the security of the entire world.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. TV7 Israel is a non-profit ministry with all of our productions exclusively reliant on your generosity. Therefore, if you're blessed by the content of our programs, I would like to encourage you to support TV7 Israel. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, I'd like to encourage you to also pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and God willing, we will see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.